So welcome everyone. Let's take a couple minutes to just sink into our bodies because we're talking about understanding mental health, and I'm going to be offering somatic tools and flower essences to serve and support you. And we have to begin by getting into the body. So if you're here and it's possible, please close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And as you breathe, just allowing yourself to come into a deeper present experience with your own self. Noticing where your breath flows with ease and where there may be pain or even levels of contraction. And the invitation in this incredible body that you inhabit is to merge and dance and to be found by your breath. This holy living pulse of the divine animating, residing in your being. Feeling deeper moments of relaxation. Feeling your connection to the earth and to the heavens above. Elongating your spine through this vertical pillar connection of below and above. So may our time together serve you. And may it be in devotion to your highest and greatest wholeness as we navigate massive times in the world. May this ripple out and impact all beings, seen and unseen, in all timelines, in all spaces, in all dimensions, for the greatest good of all. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And just taking a couple more breaths here. And you can continue to sit and listen with your eyes closed. Or you can very slowly and with a lot of presence open your eyes, letting in a little bit of light and coming back into our shared space. If you want to take notes, you can. This is going to be a class that's full of information. And also I want to tailor it specifically to what's present for you. So we are going to be talking about mental health, and I want to offer some somatic tools and flower essences. And I just want to begin the conversation really with the awareness that every single person on this planet is experiencing some levels of their mental health shifting. That in a very heightened experience that we are having with the global pandemic, our mental state gets heightened. And so for some people that may be that there's ease and there's flow. And for some, there's a lot of fears and worries, uncertainties. And then couple that with what is happening in the United States or perhaps in the country that you live in, as far as really being part of a dismantling of systemic racism or really systemic patriarchal structures that are asking us to look within at our own selves and see what beliefs we carry, what thoughts, what conditionings have been passed down culturally and generationally in our own family lineage. So there's a lot that we're exploring. There's a lot of possibilities for excavation. And of course, those who have come into this situation already feeling destabilized or having struggles around their own mental health, everything's been exacerbated. And then people who have come in feeling like, oh, everything's fine, have had a lot of their own personal patterns confront them. So here we are, and I want to presence that because oftentimes when we're dealing with mental health, we feel really alone. And that's kind of like part of anxiety, depression, overwhelm, agitation, shadow work. We can feel really alone and we can feel really separate. And I just want to remind you all that most everyone, myself, my students, my friends, my family, everyone that it's like I've come into contact is having some sort of opportunities to really look deeper within. And that can be really uncomfortable and that can be really scary. So before we begin, let's just maybe take a moment to share, what are you present to right now around fears, around specific beliefs that have maybe revealed themselves to you lately that are uncomfortable, that you're navigating, worries, kind of just like this is a space where we get to really lay our burdens down. It's sort of, the vision I have a lot of us as human beings is that we carry these baskets. I wish I had a visual to show you. It's like we carry these baskets with the biggest boulders in them, right? These like rocks that are this big, and we carry these baskets around. And especially as women, we hold these burdens. They're sort of like they've somewhat become our trophies of how much we're suffering or how much we can actually carry and do it all on our own. And in this space, and really beyond this space, the visual invitation that I like to offer is to begin to take those rocks out, right? To lay the burdens down and allow yourself to receive support in whatever way that looks like. And it's really important for us to get clear on what kind of support we want or we need. So in this space, if you can share what you're moving through, what's present for you, what beliefs, what fears, what patterns you're seeing in yourself. Because awareness is always the first piece, and to be witnessed is really life altering, right? To feel safe enough to share and then to be witnessed alters how we then see ourselves. So if you're willing, if you can share what's present for you, that would be really helpful because it helps us to see the similarities amongst us. And, some of us are really in deep financial survival. Some of us are in deep overwhelm running businesses or trying to work as an employee and having children. Some of us are in big fears of what will this world be like for our children? I know that's come up for me having a 4-year-old and all that, it's like coded in the DNA that little kids are meant to be around other little kids. And so maybe you're seeing patterns in your marriage or your relationship or your family unit that you want to shift, that you're ready to change. Maybe you're ready to leave a relationship. Maybe you're ready to expand into your relationship. Every one of us has different thoughts. The amount of thoughts that go around in our mind daily is extraordinary. So I really thank you for sharing what's present for you. So as you're sharing, I'm going to continue to bring forward what I want to share with you. So basically, let's all just come into this space from a similar frame of understanding what mental health is, why we're talking about this. So when I looked it up, this is actually sort of the definition of mental health. So mental health includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. And it also helps determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and how we make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Okay, so we have this frame that we're going to be talking about, that this is our emotional, mental, psychological, and social well-being. And during a pandemic, and when we're sheltering at home, obviously with lack of connection to others and a lot of space for self, these aspects will be greatly impacted. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about before I get into some of the somatic tools and the flower essences. One of the studies that I read when I was preparing for this call is that the research shows that 45% of people are having an increase in mental health stability. 45%. So that's almost half of the population. And I would imagine that it's even more than that, right? People who, because we normalize everything, right? So we go, oh, okay, well, we're in a pandemic, or we're in these uncertain times, or we're in this great dismantling. Of course, you're going to feel fear. Of course, you're going to be worried. Of course, you maybe want space from your partner. And so there's a lot of people who actually don't report that their mental health has shifted because of the way that we normalize everything. And part of why we normalize things is it's sort of well-intentioned, right? We want to feel okay about what we're experiencing, and we go, oh, okay, it's circumstantial. But when we normalize our anything health-wise, anything really in our life, there's a bit of negation that happens. Oh, you're a new mama. It's okay to feel tremendous anxiety. Oh, you're in the pandemic. Of course, this is happening. And when we negate what somebody is feeling, it becomes internalized. And it almost becomes their own system of self-oppression. We want to really create space for everything to be welcome, right? That we can be great one moment and we can be a total mess in another moment, that there's a both and experience. And as women, I think what happens for us is that when we feel like we're complaining, even if we're speaking valid truth, we start to go, oh, well, my life's not so bad. I have this and I have this and I have this. And it's another way of normalizing and negating. So we want to be really mindful as we talk about mental health that speaking, which is why I want you to share what's present for you, speaking what is true for you is almost the first step in the healing process, in the repairing process. Because if we just keep it inside, if we normalize it, if we say, well, everyone's dealing with this, so why do I need to complain? It sits in our system. And ultimately what it will create, if it doesn't have a voice or pathways for movement, is it will create even more issues mentally and psychologically, or it will create physical health issues, because everything is interconnected and interdependent. So that statistic of 45% to me seems like it's probably way more than that. And I would say it's closer probably in the 80%. And again, it doesn't have to be that you're like, clinically depressed. It's that your psychological state, your emotional state is being impacted and you're feeling it. So my invitation, besides, being mindful of how we normalize things and how we negate, is that in this community specifically, the invitation is to take personal responsibility. Now, I know that that can be hard, especially when you're deep in emotional or mental turmoil, right? It's kind of like you're looking around for the light switch and you can't find that switch. And how can you take care of yourself? Well, if you're in that situation, the first step in taking care of yourself is saying to someone, hey, I need some help, right? And so if you're not in that extreme, there's many, many, many ways to take self-responsibility. In our world, we have learned that oftentimes that if we're struggling, it means somebody else or something else is to blame or is responsible. And so here in this space, I want to remind you of your adulting, of your own maturity, and whenever you're in a place where you're pointing the finger outwards, it's always important to begin to turn towards self, to tend to what's real and alive about your own patterns, about your own beliefs, because all we can really control is how we then show up in the world. And it takes a lot of courage. And of course, we can always, like, the mind's so powerful, we can always say, oh, wait, but that person's really doing all these things. And that's true. But how we then respond, the choices we make from that place, is how we then get to shift our outer circumstances so that our mental space is being taken care of. So here we have the space to get real, get honest, get raw, get truthful about what you're struggling with, what the challenge is, and to begin to take personal responsibility. So with all of that said, let's talk a little bit about somatic psychology, and why I wanted to offer this really with some somatic tools, because this is really the place that I come from when I'm doing my own healing work, when I'm in my shadow lands, and the way that I teach, especially in the Flower Essence Practitioner Training Program. So somatic psychotherapy is, to me, is one of the most amazing ways to help when we're experiencing mental health issues. And that's because so much of our mental health issues are based in traumas. And somatic psychotherapy can help us to cope with these traumas, to recover, and to really begin to carve a new pathway of who we are and how to be who we are in the world. The word somatic is derived from the Greek word soma, which many of you have heard about, which means the living body, that wisdom that resides in the living body. And so somatic therapy is this gorgeous approach that studies the relationship between the mind and the body, especially in regards to traumatic past experiences. And so the theory behind all of this is that somatic therapy is that trauma symptoms are the effects of instability of the autonomic nervous system, and that past traumas actually disrupt the autonomic nervous system. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So in the climate of our planet, we're really having past traumas re-triggered. And so basically our minds are recreating the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs from the past. These memories are housed inside of the body, right? So one of the sayings in the Flower Essence community, or our community, is the issues are in our tissues, right? So that these past traumas that have been unresolved, that have been exiled, that have been ignored, that have been, just like, I'm not going there, have landed in our tissues, in our bodies. And so when we talk about mental health, we do not want to skip over the body and only focus here. That really creates a disconnect. These parts of us are intricately linked and need to really be seen in this way. So our bodies hold on to past traumas, which are reflected in our body language, in our posture, in our facial expressions, really everywhere. And so in some cases, past traumas can manifest in physical symptoms like pain, hormonal imbalances, all different, depression, anxiety, addiction. And they can also move into the capacity of our minds. So the main goal of somatic therapy is recognition and release of physical tension that's remaining in the body in the aftermath of a traumatic event, which most of us have, unless you were raised by really conscious, amazing guardians, parents. Many of us have had traumatic experiences and they've just been left in our bodies. So a lot of people right now, maybe this is you, are feeling levels of not being safe. And this is pretty much, this is true, right? So this could be a person who's not feeling safe because they don't have their income coming in, and they're in that primal fear of, I can't put food on the table. Then there's the safety that a Black person, especially a Black male, may be feeling as he walks outside, right? It's not safe. In fact, I could be killed. And so we carry these aspects of not feeling safe. Things may happen in your home where your partner says something and maybe it wasn't meant to be super hurtful, but it touched into a part of you that doesn't feel safe. And so the body responds. It's not the mind that responds to those, the body responds. And so the body goes into either fight or flight or freeze. And sometimes it'll go into different experiences depending on what you're feeling, right? So sometimes you notice you go into freeze, right? So something happens with your partner, you just freeze. Or maybe you have internalized anger and it just can't be released anywhere. Sometimes you go into fight or flight. I got to get out of here. It's not safe, right? So the body is actually, the intelligence of the body is extraordinary. And so how do we work with the body's intelligence while supporting all the emotionalities that are present for us? So in somatic therapy, there are a couple tools that I want to share with you that are very simple, because part of what happens is that we're primal animal beings. And so when something happens, like, oh my gosh, I'm in my house for 3 months, I can't see people. There's a lot of people who are single, who have no partners or don't live with roommates, who during this pandemic are like, I just want to be touched. I just miss being touched, and all the feelings that arise from that lack of touch. So we want to be really mindful about working with the body and the mind. So there's 2 tools that I want to offer to you. The first one is called titration. And if you're in the realms of personal growth or development, maybe you've heard of this, maybe it's brand new. And titration really works with that part of the nervous system. So when you're feeling whatever emotion it is that you're feeling, and it's heightened, fear, not safe, anxious, angry, titration is when you slow down. And this can be really hard when you're in a place of heightened emotion. So titration is slowing yourself down so that you begin to track the sensations in your own body. So this is not about being here and going like, I can't stand that person and they make me feel blah, 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 blah. It's about dropping into the sensations that are present in the body. And titration, the way that it works is you slow down enough that you begin to track, oh, okay, that anger is sitting right in my heart. You take some breaths. What does that sensation feel like? Oh, it feels like it wants to burst out of my body. So you're focusing more on the sensation than the thought or the belief. And you slow down and you breathe. And you slow down and you breathe. And what this helps with is that if there's a trauma that's being re-triggered, oftentimes it can send you into more trauma, right? That's why maybe you've seen people are saying like, during this pandemic, my PTSD has picked up, and it's like that wound that you have, it's just like someone's touching and touching and touching and touching it. That doesn't feel good. So we want to slow the breath down enough that the body can handle the incoming information, the present situation feelings, and it's not overwhelmed into more trauma. And so we just keep breathing. Titrate. We bring our own internal rhythms into a slower pace, and we track the sensation. So maybe you just sit with that sensation of fiery energy in your heart for a couple minutes. And as you breathe, it begins to dissipate. Or maybe you notice, oh, now I feel it in my second chakra. What does it feel like there? And you just continue to track the sensations to see if you can get to a deeper understanding of what this thought, belief, feeling that's coming through you is connected to. And when you touch into it like that, there's repair that can happen. The second tool that I want to offer is something that I myself have used many times. I haven't seen it as a teaching tool, but I think it's so powerful for this. Is part of what's happening in these moments, and I'm talking about kind of acute, heightened moments, but these could be chronic, where you're just like, why isn't my partner cleaning up? And just the anger that flows with that, and the anger that's present, and the anger that's probably connected to your needs not being met, right? By someone way before your partner. So these can be chronic things that I'm also talking about. Sometimes when we're in these heightened states where trauma has been re-triggered and it's coming out as mental health issues, I always kind of think of these are aspects of our child self that are unresolved, that haven't had the healing that they've desired. And how can we support and meet that child? And really, the thing a child most wants is to feel really safe, to feel really loved, to feel really acknowledged. So a great thing to do is to create a nest. Create a nest for yourself. Take super cozy pillows, take the most delicious blanket that you have. Almost you're activating the sensory parts of you. So I have this a red plush, it's not velvet, it's velour blanket, and I'll create a nest with that and just get myself as cozy as I could possibly get. If you have a weighted blanket, this might also be great, especially if you're having anxiety or not feeling safe, and you just snuggle yourself in there. So it's doing a couple different things. One is it's relaxing the nervous system, which is frayed and fried and either in fight or flight or freeze. This could be acute or for a long time. And it's snuggling you in to the child self, which is really the self that wants to be wrapped up. And so it's a reparenting technique in a certain way, because you're giving yourself something that maybe in that moment when the imprint or the trauma happened, you weren't receiving, and even in the repair didn't experience. And you settle in there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you need. And it's really extraordinary, especially if you make this, if you're having chronic emotions, mental health issues, if you make this a daily activity, or maybe it's every other day, you can find 15 or 20 minutes to snuggle yourself in, to get yourself feeling so safe and so cozy, so cuddled up that your whole system relaxes. And from that place, when you're more relaxed, you can explore what's present for you much more quickly, much easier, and the repair and the healing that comes after that is going to be much quicker and much easier. So those are two techniques so far that I want to share with you. Is there any questions so far? You can write them down. I want to make sure that everything makes sense. I mean, these are really simplistic tools that we can all be doing, for sure. Oh, good. Great, Carlin. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's sort of like, it's amazing. I know for me, I've noticed when I'm in my daily routine, how much I'm holding. And as soon as I get out of that routine, like if I take a walk by myself, or if I meet a friend for a walk, I realize how much I can soften into my own self, how much I'm holding. And sometimes just even in that, my mental state gets shifted. And of course, usually there's a little bit more to do. So let's talk about some flower essences that will support. And, flower essences are so great because they're working with the both and. So they're working with this part of us that, has these thoughts and beliefs and patterns and conditionings. And so they can help the mind. But because they're energetic, because they're the frequency, the soul, the vibration of a flower or a tree, whatever you're working with, they're working with your energetic field and everything that exists within your field. So that includes your body, that includes your mind, that includes your spirit. And so to me, they're such a magical way to work with mental health. So last night, as I was preparing for this, I wrote down a list of like 20 different essences, because it really depends on what somebody is moving through. So for example, we're all just facing very different things in our lives. And the thing with flower essences, which many of you have heard me say before, is that the more specific you can get, right? So flower essences, they can work like, hey, I have this fear, what can I take? But they work better if we know a little bit more about where that fear stems from. Is it fear of abandonment? Is it fear of survival? Right. So where is it coming from? And that helps us to get the best essence. So without knowing where everyone stands with what's present for you, I'm just going to start to give a list. And if you have specific emotional patterns that are coming up, mental beliefs, write them in the chat box, and I'm happy to give you specific flower essences, because I really want you to walk away feeling like, okay, I've got some somatic tools. Titration is, whoa, it's a powerful, powerful process. It sounds simplistic, but it is potent. And some flower essences that will really serve you specifically. So if you have stuff coming up, please just write it in the chat. But let me pull up what I have come up with. Okay, so here we'll start. We'll just go for it. I'll start with a couple trees, and then I'll talk about some flowers. The trees are always going to be helpful when we're talking about our mental health and somatics, because the trees have a affinity to helping us be in our bodies. And part of what happens with mental health especially like repeated mental health issues where we can't change our outer circumstances, like in a pandemic, we start to check out and we start to watch TV or engage in addictive tendencies or just really disconnect from our own selves and perhaps from relationships in our lives. So the idea is, how can we help someone to stay within the context of their own body so that they're here and they're present, and they therefore have the resources of strength within to begin to work on mental health. So really all the trees would be really beneficial, but I picked out 3. So one is elm. Our elm tree essence, and these are all from Gaia's Wisdom Essences. So you can go to gaiaswisdom.com and type in the search bar all of these essences, or you can look through all of the different collections that we have. And we do have a tree collection, and these are all in there. So the first we have is elm. Elm is for overwhelm. Anyone feeling overwhelmed? I am. I just saw this meme yesterday that said, in the time of the pandemic, you can only be a parent, or you can be like a worker, an employee, or an employer. It's incredibly hard to be both. And I get that in my body and in my experience. It's really hard straddling, navigating all of our different roles and responsibilities. Elm is for overwhelm. So it could be overwhelm of just like daily responsibilities, daily chores. It could also just be overwhelm of all the incoming information that we are constantly receiving. It is so much for our systems to not have any downtime, right? So part of another somatic tool would be really to just be in nature. Just turn your phone off for a couple days. Get away from your computer, go outside, take some deep, pure, oxygenated breaths, put your hands, put your body on the earth. Remember that you are of the earth. And so all these technological informations about everything, it's a lot for the body. So elm tree essence is amazing for really helping you to take a breath. That's what I always think of, like elm is like, I can take an exhale. Then we have ash tree, and it really helps to ease our inner judgments. So when we're in that mental looping and that going around, that creates more mental health instability. Ash is extraordinary. Red cedar is for safety. If we're not safe, well, it's sort of like we don't have the same capacities as when we are safe. And this is I've been thinking about this a lot lately, safety, because this is from my white framed privilege. And I also understand that there's many, 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 many people of color, Black people specifically here in the United States, who cannot feel safe. So when I talk about, oh, you got to feel safe, it's like, yes, we want to help you feel safe in self. And what is that experience like when you start to feel safe in self, but the outer world isn't safe? So red cedar can really start to begin to inform someone who's never felt safety of what that means. And sometimes that's confusing and almost a little disorienting if you've never felt that before. Red cedar's really beautiful in that way. And green beech. I think it's in our tree collection. It may be in our Avalon collection. There's some crossovers of some of the essences. But green beech or copper beech as well. Green beech specifically works with grief. So if you're in a place where you're experiencing a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness for many different reasons, green beech is going to be a great ally. Plus, because it's a tree, it helps you to feel more here, more stabilized. So that's a great one to be working with. Let me just see if there's any questions over here. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, Lindsay, moving through resistance at being visible and showing up fully. So I'm going to get to that in a moment when I talk about some of the flowers. Feeling overwhelmed. Oh, and you were let go from your job. Yeah. Let me see what else. So, that could be a great essence for, well, I don't know, you may or may not be feeling overwhelmed right now. It may be feeling a relief, or you may be overwhelmed at losing a job. So the elm, or even if there is grief, the green beech would be really helpful. And even the red cedar, because red cedar with that safety piece, it really helps in those moments of transition, right? So transitions in our culture don't get the attention that I think they deserve. We're just like, we're supposed to just like, oh, we lost a job, we go on here, we ended a marriage, we go in here. And there's always like a completion and a recentering and then a turning to what's next. And so red cedar can also help not just bring safety, but just also help in these moments of transition for sure. Let's see what else. I can't see all the comments for some reason. Let me see if I can see it this way. Oh, here we go. Amy, really present old patterns of abdicating my own well-being and understanding of my experience, deferring to others, making myself wrong, self-judgment. Okay, great. Okay, so I can talk about that. I said red cedar for safety, elm for perhaps if you're overwhelmed, or green beech if there's grief. Okay, so let me keep going. Okay, what would you recommend for releasing attachment to outcomes or situations? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, Madeline, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about the visibility piece. So I know what's come up for a lot of women during this time is not good enoughs. So Amy, this could be part of yours, like abdicating to somebody else because there's a part of you that doesn't feel like you know enough, you're good enough, you're worthy enough. Like these not good enoughs, they're so, they're kind of sneaky because they show up in all different ways that we don't always realize it's our self-worth speaking. So we have buttercup, which is a flower essence, and it really helps for all those not good enoughs. Every not good enough. How many not good enoughs do we as women carry? A lot. And it's also really great, specifically buttercup, is really beautiful for helping you to become more visible. So she's a little tiny flower, but part of her kind of punch is that she really helps you to take off that invisibility cloak and become seen. And part of that, of course, is connected to what we believe we're worthy to experience, and all of those, like, I am good enough. I am good enough to be seen, to be acknowledged, to make choices for myself. And Amy, as I'm thinking, Maui Wild Orchid is also incredible for discerning that place of fear and intuition, right? Part of why we turn to others is our self-worth, for sure, but also we go, I don't know if I can make the right choice. Is this my fear or is this my intuition? And so there's such a different frequency between fear and intuition. They're completely different. One's truth, one's illusion. And so Maui Wild Orchid is amazing for that place where we go, is this my fear? Is this my truth? Is this my intuition? Should I do this? I can't really tell. Maybe I'm just scared. Maui Wild Orchid is your best friend. Okay. Okay, buttercup. Okay, lemon balm and lavender are going to be amazing essences for calming the mind. And lavender even goes farther and like calms the body as well. So if you're just having a lot of mental agitation, mental movement, lemon balm and lavender, and even from our Maui collection, as I'm talking right now, passion flower. When I made that passion flower, I remember my son was like 6 months old. And if you've ever heard me talk about my son, you've heard me say that he's never really loved to sleep. He likes to be awake. That's how I used to frame it for myself when I was feeling like I was going crazy from lack of sleep. And when I collected the passion flower on Maui, he was with me. He was 6 months old, and we were collecting the essence. And we walked inside, and I think I was nursing him, and we laid down while the essence was collecting, and we slept for 4 hours, both of us. And so passion flower has a lot of spiritual aspects to it, but what I want to speak to right now in like the 3D reality of our physical bodies is that it relaxes the system so much in a beautiful way that you're restored. So maybe that's sleep, maybe that's just like a deep meditative space that you drop into, but it offers such a deep, deep restoration, which when you have mental health issues is a relief, right? To just have quiet for a moment. So the passion flowers, yeah, pretty amazing. Okay. And then we also have moments where, gosh, there's so much responsibilities, being at home, not being able, like having those same freedoms, that some of us are feeling disconnected from our spiritual paths, from our devotional paths, where maybe you had more time before, but now your kids at home, or you work from home and you can't separate those two. And so there's essences also for how to open those gateways again of your spiritual path. And so Star Magnolia is amazing for that, or our Stonehenge Stargate. So that's a portal within Stonehenge that I collected, and it's, you'll kind of like blast to the cosmos and be reunited with the soulful spirit self. So if that's an issue for you, those are 2 essences that I would highly, highly recommend. Okay, let's go back to, oh great, Amy, perfect. Lindsay, we have so much buttercup on our land. Yes, great. Usually the medicine that we need grows right around us. Okay, Ram Sahai, you're okay, but concerned about your dad and aunt worrying about you. Yeah, so if they're open to essences, they could take lemon balm or lavender for worry. But wait, Madeline, I want to go back to your question. Now I kind of forget what it is. Let me see if I can go back to it. I have to refresh this page. Let's see. I can't see all the comments. Wait. No. Madeline, could you type your comment in again? Because I can't, for some reason, I can't scroll. Kimberly, having to move and leave home and land I love through a pandemic as a result of deep family trauma, abuse, not feeling safe, fears and facing, clearing limiting beliefs in response to housing crisis, not finding anything, health and financial concerns, not sleeping. Yeah, shock, overwhelmed. Yeah, great. So you may even want to put arnica. We have arnica in, and if you search for it in Gaia's Wisdom, because when you go into deep layers of shock, okay, wait, Madeline, I'm just going to copy this so I don't lose it again. And when you're in deep layers of shock, which often happen when trauma gets re-triggered, it's really hard to do anything, which I imagine you're feeling. You're just like, right? That's the freeze part of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. I don't even know what to do, right? I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I'm so whatever it is. I don't know what to do. You're in a pattern within the nervous system. And so arnica flower essence can really work to shift, or to, like, I actually always think of it as almost like a thawing of that freezing. And it can support shock to move out of the system so that you can begin to go, okay. And St. John's wort. St. John's wort is for staying in the body. I'm here. Okay, so arnica and St. John's wort together, The shock is dissipating. I'm here. I can start to make one decision. Titrate. Maybe now I can make another. Titrate. Maybe now I can make another. Arnica, St. John's wort. Those would be great ones for you to have. Okay, Madeline, something for releasing attachment to outcomes or situations. I'm thinking because there's so many pieces that can create that attachment, right? So I guess I'm curious because I know you, if you can share where you think that attachment to a situation is coming from. Sometimes it's because we want to feel in control because we never had safety in the home that we lived in. Sometimes it's because the type A personality in us, who's a caretaker, wants to know that everything's stable. So if you can just add to that piece, that would be great. And really, like, something that's just coming to add to this conversation when I was talking about personal responsibility earlier is, really watching where the connection between our mental health and feeling like a victim, they really go hand in hand. Often when we feel we have no choice, we've gotten gypped, poor me, our mental health gets really out of control. And so really part of that personal responsibility in that titration, in that slowing down, or in that nest is going, okay, I'm a grown person here. And although in this moment it feels like maybe I don't have a lot of choices, I have choice in how I am choosing to show up for myself. Am I empowered or am I suffering? And if I'm suffering, most often the victim archetype is running the show. And do I want to stay in as that archetype and that energetic? So these are all, part of repairing and stabilizing our mental health is asking ourselves some really hard and important questions. Okay. Any other final questions? I'm just waiting for you, Madeline, okay, here we go. Okay. Wanting to be in control the circumstances because of the fear of the unknown, fear of the perceived alternative. That's a really powerful awareness. I think also there's some validation, self-worth issues, being attached to something out of an insecurity or fear. Yeah. So anything that helps you to, when we talk about trauma work or somatic therapy or mental health, one of the things that is talked about and that I deeply connect to is our resiliency. And this idea that as we get to this place of like you're saying with this pattern, Madeline, it's like, oh my gosh, I really want to control the outcome, but I'd also really like to release this pattern, but I also really don't know how to do that because that feels scary or unsafe or whatever the feeling is that's there. And how do I do this? And part of the idea of resiliency is like giving yourself or believing in yourself, right? Because oftentimes we go, oh God, that's just going to be too hard. I can't do that. This could be about our own selves. This could be about something we want to invite our children to do, to change habits. And what if we just held really high expectations for ourselves, not expectations of like achieving and, succeeding, but expectations of, yes, you can change this pattern. Yes, it's going to ask a little bit of you, but I hold that for you. Right? And you're speaking to yourself. I hold that for myself. So letting go of control is part of feeling safe. So that red cedar is going to be really helpful. I mean, safety is really underneath everything. So any times we're like, I got to be in control and all these things and really attached to the outcome. Also lemon balm for calming the mind, for going, okay, I hear you want that outcome. And let's just surrender a little bit for a moment. Let's just have a pause. And then with, expectations or outcomes, there is also like the both and that what if it's actually also really important for you to hold a vision for a specific outcome, right? Or to speak that desire for an outcome. We have Marigold on the Gaia's Wisdom site, which is for speaking your truth, right? Hey, I really would like for things to work out like this. This is my vision. I'm going to really work to support this experience. So there's the both like super empowered aspect of holding a vision and being attached to an outcome, right? And, as we bring something tangible in the form, and then the place where we suffer, where we go, oh my gosh, I'm holding on to this and it's making me crazy and it's not in my highest good. And so essences like lavender, lemon balm, the red cedar, and especially if there's and this just kind of segues into the final flowers I want to talk about, the roses. So really making sure that the heart is being tended, sort of what I was talking about in the beginning of like creating that nest so you feel like super cozy, oh my gosh, so safe. When we are holding on to an attachment, the heart is just staying in that really armored space, right? Like, I'm not letting go no matter what. I'm going to stay in torture no matter what. I'm holding on. And really letting the heart soften. From that place, a lot of that holding begins to change because your self-love begins to be turned inward rather than everything being, an outward projection of what you want. So we have 8 different roses in our Avalon collection. And actually we have another rose called Mount Shasta Wood Rose. But these Avalonian roses all offer different dimensions to our heart healing. So right now, the one that's coming forth for you, Madeline, is the soft pink rose. Like just like the soft opening of your own mothering of self, right? This pattern's not serving me. I'm holding on way too tight. I want to let go. When I let go, there might be something even greater that comes forth. So the soft pink rose, we have red rose, we have white rose, we have gold rose, we have magenta, like a fuchsia. It's almost like a purple rose. And we have this like neon orange rose. So all of these roses are also a must when you're working with somatic and mental health, because they're one and the same. What happens to one affects the other. So roses are they're just gonna open the heart space to heal a broken, wounded heart that feels, shattered. Maybe you're ending a relationship or trauma from the past. Soften with like motherly love, open to divine love, and on and on and on. There's, the abundance of love. So I would definitely check out the roses for any sort of mental health. So thanks for asking that, Madeline, and thanks for giving further details. Okay, ladies, so are there any questions about anything I shared, anything that feels you want a little bit more detail or you need a little bit more detail or clarification? I'd love to make sure we have space for that in the next few minutes so you can just write down anything that's present and alive. Also, I love hearing if this was supportive or if this wasn't supportive or what you want more of, because the whole point of being here is to be in service to you and for you to know that there are many tools and that you do not have to stay in any level of suffering. That is a patriarchal context for women. Stay in suffering, you stay in silence, and you're not part of a greater solution. You're under-resourced. So we'll just take a moment if anyone wants to type anything last here. Madeline, would you also recommend arnica for acute trauma? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So arnica can be used for acute trauma or trauma that's happened in the past that's leaving you in that freeze mode. So absolutely. Absolutely. They'll feel an instantaneous shift. Oh, good. Kimberly, arnica, and St. John's wort. Yeah. Yeah, that feels like such a beautiful combination for you. Oh, great. You just made arnica flower essence. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, great. Oh, Natalia, I love you. Yeah. No more staying and suffering in silence. No more. No more. I know it's hard, but it's really important to speak and to ask for support and to let people know you're not perfect. None of us are. Yeah, and yarrow is amazing, says Chloe. Yeah, yarrow is an amazing essence. There's a gazillion thousand essences that are so helpful right now. So I just want to complete with the, I've been working with flower essences for almost more than half my life. And I've never met an issue that they can't help. So if I didn't say, or you didn't speak what's present for you, please know that there's absolutely an essence in nature that supports you to come back to your true nature, without a doubt. So that's a joyful celebration. So thank you all for letting me share with you today. I'm glad that this served you in whatever way that it has. And we're going to meet back next week. I think it's next week. Yeah, next week. I'm going to talk about some essences for children, because I know that there's a lot of parents here whose kids are going through all different things, being at home and having school online and not knowing what to do with themselves during the summer, and potentially not being around other people. So I'll be sharing next week about some essences for children as well, if you want to come and listen in. And if there's any other topics that are really present, doesn't just have to do with flower essences. It can be around ritual, devotions, the priestess path. I really love coming in here, either twice a month or 3 times a month, and sharing with you and offering what serves you. So please, please, please let me know, maybe in the comments below, like, what would be your dream to come in and explore or learn or experience in your body? That is so helpful to me, and I'm really greatly appreciative. So let's take a moment to close our eyes, giving thanks for the way that our bodies and the way that our minds are navigating a complicated world. Just giving yourself some words of gratitude in this moment for how you're showing up in the beauty or the absolute discomfort. Letting that really land in your body. Reminding yourself that gratitude creates more gratitude, creates more ease and more expansiveness. We give thanks for it all, as this human existence invites us in deeper and deeper to self, and then to be part of this greater humanity. Feeling our great sisterhood and knowing that we can come here as we choose. And so it is. And thank you so much, ladies, for being here. Bowing to all of you for all that you are, all that you carry, all that you're experiencing, all that you're offering in the world. You're so needed and you're so seen and so loved and celebrated. And I'm sending you a great big nest of love from my body to yours, from my heart to yours. And I look forward to gathering again with you all soon. So much love. Blessed.